Hello,
How's it
hello.
going?
Things going well?
Yeah, everything's great.
Good, love it.
You gonna talk to us about your good stuff today?
I'm very excited. I hope everybody, this is great. I don't know if it's popcorn or not. I didn't think that.
She did it to everybody 12 hours ago.
Yeah, 12 hours, yeah, real fast.
What mic is taking you live?
We are on the I know a lot of you folks, but I don't know some of you. My name's Ed Major. I am the regional program manager out of the Buffalo office, Bureau of EMS. We have a staff, abundant staff out of the Buffalo office that we cover 17 counties in this particular area. I'm the primary contact for this particular region. I've got Don Trepez out of the Buffalo office. He's primarily a southwestern. Southern tier is his primary territory, and then I've got Ross Astro in Rochester. I also supervise the staff out of Syracuse. So we really cover 29 counties. For there's only about 5 of us. We're a scarce resource. I really appreciate you taking the time to come tonight. Brian had asked me a few weeks ago. We've changed our inspection process, so that's really what my focus is. Tonight, it took me only like 10 minutes, and I was like, when I go, I like to come out. People really get excited about regulations. I mean, I could talk, 3-4 hours of regulations. I mean, if the meeting's canceled, if you guys want to stay, we can certainly, do that if you're interested. But what I wanted to go through tonight was a specific statewide initiative that we actually sort of started out of the Buffalo office. We had the opportunity from the state health department to utilize a product called MobiTask. So we're moving from paper, we're into the next century here. We're going to all electronic with iPads for the ambulance agency full service inspections and spot inspections that will occur at hospitals and random locations across the area. So I wanted to kind of go through a brief demo on this and then answer questions because there's some additional things that have basically been added into our inspection process that are not necessarily in the on the current inspection forms. I also will pass around a decent sheet. Don Trepez has got those. We'll pass those around so that you can kind of have. Now here I am up here saying we don't do paper, but I'm giving you copies of.
Thank you.
Let's get the techie guy on this right away. Is our staff's going to go out with iPads and for the full service inspection. The regulations have not changed. We've enhanced some things to be, believe it or not, consistent from Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, all the way to Albany and New York City. So we've had staff, we had a dedicated team that put this product together, and sort of we took bits and pieces from the New York City team, from the Syracuse team, from the Albany team, from our Buffalo team and our Rochester team, and we had some power users come together to sort of optimize this so that we could be as efficient as we could be, and also become more compliant with the regulations and the standardization. So whether you're in Rochester or whether you're in Buffalo or Syracuse or New York City, the inspector is utilizing the same tool, and it goes down through everything that's really required. Specifically policies and procedures, they're on that form that I've given out, or Don's passing out at this point. It's stable enough. He only told me 15 minutes, so I won't take up the whole time. If your agency does have specific questions, I'll be here afterwards. We can certainly talk about it as we schedule full service inspections. We'll be utilizing this product. And all the reports at the end, you're not going to get paper forms. You're going to get an electronic report which sort of summarizes all of the activity that the inspector completed. So I'm just going to pick Kylerville. It's not in this area, I realize that, but this is where we would start. We would basically put in what our inspection type is, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I wanted to. We'll go through, make this a periodic, inspection. What I would say to the agencies is that this data is pulling information from our database out of our central office. So typically we have transitions and leadership and those kinds of things on our Bureau website, which is being updated frequently. There's an EMS agency update form. So if you have a change in leadership, a change in an EMS captain, we would like you to ensure that you complete that form, send it to our Bureau office so that information gets in. We've also asked, actually Lee Burns, our former director, asked for all the agencies to develop an agency-based email address. She had preached that across the state for a long period of time. Some agencies did it so that no matter who the contact is, that always went to an agency email instead of, changing every, whatever period, changes based on elections and those kinds of things. So this is Cuylerville's ambulance. I'll submit this. Processes it basically, and then we'll go to the next part here. And I'm gonna treat this as if we're doing a full service inspection. I'm not gonna go through the full thing, but I'm gonna kind of give you an overview. So the inspector then will check and look for where Cuylerville goes. This is going good so far. Hang on, let me sync. Apparently it didn't sync. This is wonderful. It does work, believe me. Well, anyhow, I'll just pick one here for that purpose. Whatever. Cuylerville, apparently we'll use this particular one. So here is where the full service agency inspection portion will start. This is all broken down by our 800 regulations, 800 code. And we're going to go down through and basically from a mechanical position, maintaining the ambulance in compliance with the parts. These are all on our current. If you look at your previous inspection, the majority of this stuff is currently there. Personnel files, run reports, maintaining appropriate facilities. We always find traditionally, historically, we have found many agencies that are not compliant with hydrostatic test dates. We always try to emphasize hydrostatic test dates are a good thing to check. Many field providers are familiar with the process. Some are not, but we typically find tanks that are, especially if an agency fills their own tanks, we find that they ignore the hydrostatic test dates, or the individuals that are actually filling them are potentially doing them in a dangerous manner and not in compliance with OSHA standards and that kind of stuff. We're not going to hit you from an OSHA standard standpoint. However, we make strong recommendations if you're filling your own oxygen system in D-tanks and utilizing high pressurized systems, that you have adequate training, that you've got safety precautions, and that you're doing it appropriately. Some places that we've seen, it's like, I'm surprised somebody hasn't had their head injured, or some significant things based on some of the things that we have seen. So we always emphasize safety. We always emphasize compliance with hydrostatic test dates, securing loose objects in tanks in the ambulances. So a new thing that is a complex matter, but if your service is an ambulance transfusion service, we've asked some questions in there, and I'm not going to go into I'm not going to get too granular with this because I could talk for this for really an hour or so. But you don't want me to do that, correct?
Actually, we just found out that we're not gonna have quorum, so if you want us to suspend business and then we can do whatever.
Oh, these folks came all this way. Feel free if you
Make this easy. For the council members, a motion to suspend business until our next regular scheduled meeting. Christina, Don, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Business is suspended. This is my last meeting as chair, so I just want to take a second to thank everybody for their work over the years. Crystal's taken over. I know that all of you will be very supportive and help her the way you've all helped me, and I appreciate that. Also, please, if you have a moment to think good thoughts about Jim Glass. He is recovering from his knee replacement and hopefully doing well, as far as I know, but literally had that done, I believe, today. Yesterday. Hopefully going home today was what it was. So.
He actually he went home yesterday, but he did say they weren't able to do both knees, they only did the one, so. Otherwise.
Jim's home, going back at some point, but think well of him. Any council member, I guess, who needs to sneak out while Ed's talking, feel free. Everybody else, we'll try and moderate it to a reasonable time. But
yeah, I can talk for hours about this stuff. If I start to bore, you just say, hey, okay, enough, we get it. You're using an electronic format. But I want the agencies to have an opportunity also for questions and answers, and go from there. But and I'll try to move through this, promptly. So if you're an ATS or a blood transfusion service, we're asking some questions. Not everybody's going to be doing that. A lot of volunteer agencies probably more so for probably traditional providers. As we go down through here, these are common things. Having the EMT on the call, that would probably be a good idea. Transport on patients, that stuff is not changed. So policies and procedures. Traditionally, depending on the inspector that you've got, we go through the policies and procedures, and 821P is listed all the required agency policies and procedures that you do need to have. We're going to ask for those one by one. Now, we can do some of the stuff in advance if you do send us your policies and procedures to the inspector. We can fill this out in advance so that we're not taking up a ton of your time, if we can get those. Verification of certifications, CME programs, specialized training records, all those kind of components. As we get into 821P, which I was just mentioning, we can go into, these are the, having mutual aid, having the maximum call receipt, and all these other things. And a lot of this stuff, everything that I'm talking about generally is on this this form that we've given out to you. But I just wanted to talk about child abuse. It talks about patient not location, patient refusals, and all those kinds of things. So if you're unfamiliar with what the policy requirements are for your agency, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of the agencies we go to, we go in and we ask for the policy, and everybody looks at it, the captain looks at the chief looks at the captain, and sometimes they can't find them. Other times we find them, boom, they're right in order with the DOH regulatory requirements, and that makes us very, very pleased. We need to confirm that you have those policies, so ensure that they're there. We added something in, it's to follow all current directives and commissioner's orders. Current commissioner order is that you do Ebola, donning and doffing every 12 months. Eventually that will expire and come out. Ebola's been around for quite a while. It started to, in Sierra Leone, it's popping back up. I don't know, we have not, the commissioner has not basically let this expire, so we do find many agencies that were not aware of it. Don't think that the local health department's going to call them for a Ebola type patient. Hopefully they won't. There are designated agencies that are with that, but we still want you to comply with the commissioner's orders. So quality assurance is something that we typically find is lacking. Often agencies will say we utilize the program agency to do all of that. We expect that the agency themselves has a quality assurance program, and that it's that it's adequate. There's PCR checking for protocol compliance. Your medical director's involved. All those kinds of components. So so we've asked the questions. Do you have an internal and a regional quality assurance program? Did you participate in the regional initiatives from the REMAC? Controlled substances is the next thing. We're making sure that they're properly safeguarded. For the BLS ambulance, it's not anything that we would even get into. These are all basically checked in that they're not applicable. Continuing medical education CME program. We've got a lot of agencies that have moved to 100% online. You would still go through and verify that the CIC has signed off on your paperwork, that there's adequate documentations to ensure that the individual that's being recertified is eligible for recertification, and that process is verified. So if you're in the CME program, ensuring that the approved plan that you guys have submitted to our central office to be a part of the CME program is actually what you're doing, and the record keeping is adequate. Sorry, you got a question in the back?
Yeah, and are you going down this right now?
I'm just using the program, the way it's formatted there.
I'm trying to follow. I'm trying to follow.
Oh, this is old to me, so the format might not be the same. It's just we took our old check sheet, and those things are all still relevant.
Right.
And I'm kind of going down through this as to how it's programmed in our computer. So the way that it's broken by different sections. I'm sorry about that, but if you got any specific questions, believe me, I'm glad to answer them.
Can we get a copy of what you are showing us?
That's a good idea. I will try to get screenshots, and I'll send them off to Scott. Leaving for vacation in the morning, so it's not going to be anytime soon, but we'll do that so that you can see what those questions are.
That would be so
I'll
helpful.
assure you that we'll do that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Then blood glucose testing, is your CLIA license up to date? So we've added a lot of these questions that really we've gone through historically, but we've standardized our approach. These are full service inspections. We'll go into the spot inspections. The rest of this information is just the same thing: number of vehicles in the fleet, how many ambulances we inspected, how many ambulances were in service, available, or out of service, and then any comments or recommendations. We can take photos. And then the inspector's signature will go in there. Obviously, we'll look at basically everything that we've always historically looked at. This is not like we're adding any new regulatory things. But when I get into the vehicle stuff, which I'm going to move right into now, There's a couple, you have a question, or?
Yes, I got a question.
Go ahead.
You talked about taking photos.
We could, if we go there, we find something that's non-compliant, or, you know, we may add that into the,
So you don't take photos of compliant items, you only take them of non-compliant
Well, no,
items?
I'm not, I mean, no, that's not true, and you can ask Brian, you know, we've done a demo for the last, I don't know, a few months. This started back in October, and then we sort of rolled it out as a demo to try to make sure that it's functional, that it works. We spot inspection, we
He
spotted.
sent me some nice pictures of a very clean ambulance and the Smiley crew.
Yeah, yeah, so we'll do that. If we see something that's 100% accurate and good, and like, hey, wow, this crew should be commended, you know, we'll put that right in there, and we will send that off. And I've personally done that with Twin City, a couple other agencies. I mean, we're not just out to identify, but if we see something that is like, you know, we're looking for it from an evidence, standpoint. If we're gonna issue a statement of efficiency, you're looking at it, you're saying, okay, you know, there's a bloody mess at the back of the ambulance, you know, it wasn't compliant. You're saying, you know, the requirement is clean and sanitary, and it's not clean and sanitary. The description from the inspector versus a photo.
I was a New York State inspector for 33 years, so trust me, I understand exactly
Yes.
what you're saying.
Yes.
The question is that, the question also that morphs into is that if it is a good thing, you would like to take it as an example as what? Do you ask the supervisor or the captain or
absolutely. We're
whatever
not
up
gonna-
there prior to taking the picture?
Yeah, we're not out to
Okay.
get it, you know, like the crew and that, you know, I mean, you know, if somebody says, I don't want my picture taken, we're not, you know, and the pictures are not necessarily, you know, not a required, you know, item.
Mhm.
We're taking them, you know, as necessary or as indicated, but we're not, it's not as if we're coming in and recording, you know, you know, we've got iPads now, I guess you can record the whole, you know, we're not doing that. I mean, obviously, we find a lot of high-quality agencies that have done very, very good things, and we find compliant agencies. Unfortunately, we do find agencies that are not compliant with the public health law, and, you know, we do need that from an evidence standpoint. And, you know, from a statement of efficiency, if we're issuing it, we're gonna send that off to you and say that, you know, here's what the inspector found. You know what I mean? But we also, you know, will emphasize the good. I mean, I think that's an important component of what we're doing out there. So, and the pride that your folks take in your ambulance service. So, I hope I've adequately addressed your situation or your question.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's go here. So vehicles, if we're just doing a spot inspection at a hospital, and I want to address the spot inspection. I will say this, we have a new leader, Director Greenberg, excellent leader, and he has basically, you know, revised our process to, you know, we've moved to some strategic days in which our field staff is actually, you know, dedicated to being in the field, doing spot inspections, doing check-ins on ambulances and those kinds of things. We are, you know, we've heard some feedback that there was concerns about us delaying emergency responses and that kind of stuff. I want to be very, very clear. If you know, the inspector is there, the system is busy, and we are, you know, if there's calls holding and some kinds of things like that, we're not gonna delay a response to an ambulance call to do a spot inspection. We may follow up when it's a quieter time, and certainly go with the agency to, you know, basically to conduct the spot inspections. And we do spot inspections on commercials. The commercials are certainly targeted more because they've got a higher capacity from a volume of ambulances. You go to Buffalo General, you know, there's 6 AMR and 6 Twin City and one volunteer unit potentially there, you know, depending on the period of the time of the day that we're there for an inspection. So we try to select it and balance it off. We're not trying to target one particular agency or another, but we do blend it with volunteer agencies and the commercial agencies. So, you know, I just want to be very, very clear that we're not out there trying to delay or to cause a delay. And I know a lot of folks are volunteer. You guys, you know, you just brought in a critical patient, those kinds of things. We're a resource to you also. We're not here to hinder the system. We want to make sure that we're doing what's right for the system. But we also have an obligation to ensure that there's regulatory compliance there. And, you know, our bureau director has expected that we raise the bar, and I think that that's a good thing. It's a good, quality standards are an important piece of the, you know, the EMS system. So we'll you know, I'll just leave it at that. But, so this is the you know, the spot inspection form will particularly, I'll use Twin City for this particular one. And use your Fillmore address, which now keep in mind there's some old information that's in here until we go live. This is an evaluation process, and I know he's gonna hit me about the address not being correct. It's correct in our database, but we're using an old database to go through this particular process. So we'll use a quick inspection for this particular one, so you can see what we're talking about, because I'm going to go into one of the changes that you'll notice, and I want to be able to explain that to you so that you understand where we're coming from and what we will do. We've added check engine lights to our inspection process, and we have. Let me start with the top here. The VIN number, there's a little bit of a delay. We have to manually enter that. The programmers are in the process of allowing us to use a QR reader or a barcode reader to populate that information automatically. Same thing with your driver's license. Currently, that link is not working. So the RoveWare developers in their next update are going to fix that for us, and we'll be able to make this a little bit more optimized. Unfortunately, a little bit of delay. We have to put the VIN number in. We have to put the driver's license ID in, but that will be corrected. They say within the first quarter, which is rapidly approaching the end. So as we say deadlines, whatever. But so we put that information in. Generally, we look at the DMV registration, all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to put in one from February of 16, because that'll basically make this an automatic failure because of the registration or the New York State inspection. If that is expired, we have to take the ambulance out of service. Check engine lights. It's a new feature that we looked at. We traditionally haven't, certainly in the Western region, looked at check engine lights. There's two things that will remove your ambulance from service, and I want to be very, very clear about this and give you a little bit of the background because it's a new process, and we've had some interesting feedback related to the check engine light process. If your ambulance has a red indicator, now that's not necessarily a check engine light. It's the in this situation, red, and I don't know if there's mechanical people in here. You could probably explain it better than I can, but the alternator is not charging. The vehicle's going to die anyway, really soon. Okay, or something else is significantly wrong. It's not charging. The alternator is not right, and you've got a red indicator on your dash. Not the seatbelt, that you're not wearing your seatbelt, but something mechanically is wrong with that vehicle and it needs to be removed from service. Probably the alternator or the charging system, and you're gonna the ambulance is not gonna make it too far without mechanical intervention. The other thing is a yellow blinking check engine light. This is only going to go on when there is a severe issue. An ambulance is misfiring. I mean, the crews probably recognize this, that hey, this thing's got to be out of service. The thing's going to be misfiring. There's a severe problem with the ambulance. Those two items will take the ambulance immediately out of service. If there's just a check engine light on, a yellow check engine light, which is it's not flashing, it's a solid check engine light. We click that button, we noticed it, we say to the agency and to the crew and your agency representatives, once this spot inspection is completed, the inspection will immediately be forwarded to whoever's on file from our database, okay? So in that situation, it'll pop up on the bottom of the report that says, the inspector noticed a check engine light. You've got 5 business days to let us know that issue is not a safety issue and that the matter has been resolved. It doesn't take the ambulance out of service. You go back, you can go respond to other calls. There's certain criteria under the DMV regulations where vehicles over 8,500 pounds are exempt from the emission standards and other components of that. We're well aware of that. We don't typically find many ambulances with check engine lights. We have found several, across the state. New York City, what they were doing initially when, and I guess they've historically done it, was if there's a check engine light, that vehicle's removed from service. We did a little more research on that. We worked with our central office, we worked with New York City and across the state, and this is what we came up with, which we think is a fair process. It does, say when, where is that in the regulation? And it's the part where it says follow all other federal, state, and applicable rules, regulations, and laws, and we have to have you follow the DMV ready. We're not mechanical, you know, we're not using creepers like certain previous inspectors used to do years ago. But, you know, if there's a mechanical issue, especially a severely, you know, an indicator that the check engine light is flashing and indicates a severe problem, we're not gonna allow that from a safety perspective to transport patients. So as we move through this, it'll, you know, I like to emphasize that because it's sort of a new procedure. This is just basically the same information, EMS staff, you know, what certification levels are. We typically look for your EMT certification, we look for the driver that they've got a valid driver's license, and then in the spot inspection or the quick inspection, anything that is bolded in red is the standard stuff that, if you look at our old check sheet, they're gray shaded. Those are what have been considered for years the critical items, that if you don't have those items, you're gonna fail. If your suction doesn't go to 300, you don't have adequate suction, those components, you don't have an ambulance, you know, a wheeled ambulance cot or gurney. You know, these items are required, and we will remove the vehicle from service for all of those things. If there's a question, you know, from your crew as to what specifically our 800 regulations say about patient scraps, the inspector can easily click on this particular box, and it brings up on the iPad here's specifically what the regulation says. So gives you a little bit more flexibility. We don't have to go to the website, look it up. The information is programmed into the computer system. Your crew can see it, your supervisor can see it, and you know, we can explain it very, very clearly directly from the regulation. So, so that is basically, and you know, do you want me to keep going into all this level of detail, or do you want to open this up for questions? Skip's got a question. Come on, Skip.
Do you ask crew members physically to see their cards?
We do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, here's the deal, okay? If they don't have, if you came from home, it's, you know, jumped on an ambulance call as a volunteer, you don't have your card, we give you 24 hours to produce that,
So
okay?
if we put a notebook
If
with
you,
copies
that's
of their
totally
cards,
acceptable.
we'll be all right?
Yeah, we have no issue with that. We're not, you know, we want them to have, you know, some verification of certification. I think that, you know, we have various counties across the state that require specific EMS identification. We do have a policy statement on EMS identification, but, you know, there's a thing that says that, you know, we're gonna, you know, go after you if you don't have your EMT certification. We understand the volunteer system. We understand that there are times that, you know, you're leaving, you know, whatever you're doing and jumping on, you may not have that. We have an easy way to verify that the individual is certified. We do, you know, we want people to be compliant and have their certifications, and it's a great example to have everybody's certification in a binder, you know, in the ambulance. That's something acceptable to us. We may ask them still to produce the original, you know, certification within 24 hours or something to that effect, but it's not gonna, you know, we're not gonna have conflict with that. Answer your question, okay? Somebody over here had a question, I'm sorry.
Is a picture on your phone okay too? I mean, if you have it on your phone.
We have accepted that in this region. You know, I should probably get clarification from our new boss, but the new director. But you know, we have accepted those as long as we can cross-verify it. I mean, we know it's a technology has moved so far, and people. We have millennials. We have, you know, a blended system. So generally, we'll accept those.
What about driver's licenses? Do we have 24 hours on those?
Same type of thing. We're not, you know what I mean? If we've got, you know, if we've got a question about it, we're gonna reach out to the agency manager and you know, communicate about it. But, you know, we're not asking you to change your procedures into, you know, if you were scheduled, you know, on a commercial ambulance service, then, you know, we expect that you probably have that stuff. If you're coming from home as a volunteer, we get, you know, how the system works. So, any other questions on that piece? Eric?
No, being with the technology is the way it is nowadays, would not the picture copies, but like date copies and numbers of everybody's certifications be acceptable in the EPCR system?
So there's a certification component in there too, if you
Yeah,
pop that
so
up.
that's acceptable?
Tim, go ahead.
I don't mean to be difficult,
Oh, you're not.
but I'm going to be a little bit.
Sure, appreciate that.
So if we're going to have standards, and we're going to have different ways of applying them, whether it be volunteer or commercial, would it be possible to get kind of a list of expectations of what we can expect that will be handled differently? And then I kind of expound on that question would be then the application of SODs. And one is the metric in which we'll use to apply the SODs, and then the distribution of those SODs to where do they go and kind of what that's used for.
I'll answer that question. I want to be very clear. We're not really, we're holding people to the same standard, okay? What I'm saying to you is that if you have an electronic version, we're acceptable with that. You know what I mean? I mean, the majority, you have an, I'm looking at it from your agency policy. You have an agency policy that your people have it. You know what I mean? They're on duty. They're serving, you know, as an EMT. An individual who may be a farmer or an electrician or something that's leaving their work to go to an ambulance call, you know, we have a little bit of latitude to say, you know, are you you know, and does the agency have copies of the certifications there? You know, I do encourage, you know, from the county perspective to have some kind of credentialing process. We want everybody to be in compliance with our policy statements, but we're not, I'm very, very clearly not differentiating between, I said that as individual AMR, Twin City, you know, you're a dedicated, you know, professional crew, you're on for a 12-hour shift, we expect you to have those certifications on as the agency does. So from the statement of deficiency standpoint, if there's any critical violations, whether it's a volunteer agency or a commercial agency, we'll issue those statement of deficiencies across the board, you know, and fairly. We're not saying you're a volunteer unit, you can get away with not having an adult BVM with the appropriate number of masks, or your suction doesn't work, we're gonna allow you to bypass that system. Absolutely not. You know, the standards are the same, and we are basically ensuring compliance is what our regulatory authority is. So I know you're asking a question specifically about some distributions of statement deficiencies. We have looked at that. We have looked at that process, and I will follow back up with you on a one-for-one. But we will issue our statement deficiencies generally electronically. Our distribution list, we have sort of debated that a little bit, and I will tell you very, very clearly that all agencies, if you have an expired operating certificate, we're going to notify, from a statement deficiency standpoint, we're going to notify the municipality, we're going to notify the WEREMSCO, we're going to notify the REMAC, we're going to notify your medical director,
Sure.
all those, you know, those individuals. We, you know, we have a process of transparency. I know we did get a little bit of pushback from your well, he's still there. So anyhow, we got a little bit of pushback from some of your staff related to us distributing SODs in a more timely fashion and a distribution list. But I think we'll, if you don't mind, we'll have when you and I meet, we'll have a one-for-one to discuss that. But the standard, I want to be very, very clear about the standard, is that we will do whatever we're doing across the board related to statements of deficiency, whether it is a commercial service or a volunteer service. So.
And I appreciate that. I was just more looking for
Did
the
I answer your
discretion.
question okay?
Yeah, I was looking more for the discretionary action, and I believe that you should have discretion, but I get concerned with discretion and application evenly across the board.
Well, and I gotta be honest with you, Tim, this process, you know, depending on, you know, what inspector you were dealing with, and whether it was a Syracuse inspector, and, you know, we have high standards for all of our inspectors, but we believe it or not have had some inconsistencies in the way that we have inspected vehicles, you know, depending on what inspector you've got, and depending on what the circumstances were. They're still holding you to the same standard, but there was differences. We standardize this. We standardize, okay, it's a political question, but we standardize this process so that the inspectors are utilizing the same tool in New York City, Albany, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. We're all using the same situation. So, you know, you know, whether it's volunteer, whether it's commercial, you're going to see multitasking here. And this product also, or this, you know, mechanism, as regulations change, and, you know, those kinds of things. As I send out, when I get back from vacation, I send out the screenshots of this stuff, and I'm happy to do that for you. You know, keep in mind that as things change or regulations change, and we're due for a regulatory upgrade, I would say. And I don't know how long that's going to take, but certainly as those things get modified and updated, we will, this system will change, but, so I can't guarantee that I'll always, you'll have the current version, I don't, we do communicate effectively with the program agencies, with the regional councils, with the EMS coordinators and that kind of stuff related to those things, but, so, Tim, have I answered your question adequately, or would you like me to go deeper?
We're good.
I don't wanna get too granular, but I will, you know what I mean,
Well, that's, you're kind of getting granular, then you're going away from granular.
yeah, you're
I'm
right.
good for now.
Okay,
It's
thank you very
sensitive.
much. Another question back
Can we
here.
access
This was 15 minutes, so I'm excited to
what
be
you
here.
have on the screen now? Can we access that? Not populated.
This is not on our website, no. This is like a MobiTask specific product that the State Health Department has, I think you could download MobiTask, but you wouldn't have access to our, to our system by any means. Is that
So
what you mean?
if there's a way to make that form available to us on a website so that we can.
You know what, I'll check, we've got some new interns out of the Albany office, and, our IT is expanding, and we're doing a lot of good things. I don't wanna commit to something that I can't, I don't know, but I will respond to you. Do I have your email, or are you gonna email me?
I'll make sure I get it to you.
Okay, I will make sure that we follow back up with you. Where was I here? Okay, so anyhow, this is the general information related to quick inspection. As we go down through.
Yeah.
And realistically, nothing has changed related to the critical items that are required. If you look at our old sheets, those are the gray shaded areas, okay? So there's nothing different about that. So, I think in general, you okay, Eric? Any questions? So as you see here, this one had a DMV, when I check that, whatever, you'll get those notes. At the end of the process, this will automatically, and we can add, if the captain is there, if you've got another chief or another line officer that's not listed in our EMS database, we can add as many emails when we distribute this. So we will, if we're meeting with an EMS captain or an authorized representative, we'll add their email in and we'll ship out the report. So all the information that we check, you'll get it whether it's there, whether it's not there, or if there's any violations that are going to be issued. This product does not issue the statement of deficiency. Tim asked specifically about statements of deficiency. We're not there yet with this product, so we will note on there though that a statement of deficiency would be issued or not issued, okay, for any deficiencies that are there. And any of the critical items, generally you're going to get a statement of deficiency. So I think that from an awareness perspective, the regulations have not changed. Regulations are, these are the minimum requirements that are listed clearly in Part 800, and these are what should be on everybody's ambulance. And we know many agencies far exceed the regulatory requirements. We appreciate that, and it all is based on your agency and what your agency policies and procedures are. We also, again, we set the minimum standard, minimal acceptable standard for what has to be on an ambulance. We talk about, regulatory compliance, and that's really what this does. And it also standardizes our policies and procedures, across the state. And I think that's really a good thing. And we're getting away from paper. So by the time we complete a spot inspection or a full service inspection, that information is getting to the agency managers in a very, very timely manner. So I think that is basically the gist of the product and the inspection process. I will be very, very clear. I'm happy. This is an evolving situation. We're moving from the evaluation period to production by the end of this month. So we're going to be 100%. We don't anticipate system failures or anything to that effect. Again, I would emphasize to the agencies to check who your point of contact is. If it's changed in the last 8 or so months and you haven't gone through a renewal application, I would say get an EMS agency update form completed and sent in. We also encourage an agency email address so that we can, when this thing populates, it's coming directly from our database and into the system. Again, we can add as many emails as the chief or the line officer that we're dealing with wants to have added at the time of the inspection. But I think that I think it's a good product. I think that it's, you know, it's gonna be more effective, more efficient, and it drives home the standardization, you know, from, like, again, from Albany, Buffalo, New York City, and across the state. So I really appreciate all you guys coming out tonight. Sir, you have a question?
If you go to your inbox, there's a completed.
Oh, is there a report there?
There's a report there.
Okay, let me see if we can get that. I'll give you an example of the report. Thank you, Don, very much. Oh, I got a question over here. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Is there something on the website of what ALS, for an ALS agency, what drugs are required?
That's under the REMAC. Basically, they break it down by all the different levels of care. There's a REMAC requirement there. We've got the, you know, our policies and procedures stage have to be in accordance with the authorized system protocols, okay? But on the REMAC website, Scott, where are you? Do you know where that is? Could you tell us where that is? On
It's
the
the required fluids and medications.
Okay, gotcha.
Which will be likely updated again here shortly.
Okay, so this is a Twin City example, and this is how your report will come electronically. This is what we expected here, one vehicle. It's a 3-page report. Some of these pages, you know, if we're out doing spot inspections, you may not get that spot inspection immediately. We will leave what we call open work. So if we're out for a whole day and we've got 5 inspectors, we will keep the agency line open, and all inspections for that particular day will be rolled into and bundled into one report, instead of sending the agency contact 6 or 8 emails for that particular day. So keep that in mind, that if you hear, you know, one of your crews was spot inspected at a particular hospital, you know, if we're out there for the whole day, you're not going to get that to the close of business for maybe the next morning. But it's a lot more timely and it's a lot more efficient. As you can see, here's the general gist of the report. It breaks down everything. The comments will show up. Everything was here. This one was a very good, high quality, you know, inspection. And that's basically that. So we also, the photos, you know, we won't email photos, you know, initially, because those can basically bog down the system. If there are photos, they'd be sent in a separate attachment. So yeah, we're not doing a full agency inspection on you yet.
Oh, no, I'm just saying that ALS ambulances were brought up, and you know how long it would take to go through everybody's drug bag and.
Right. Well, you know, we do randomize. I mean, you know, and I'll be honest with you, we're finding a ton of expired stuff out there. So, you know, it's amazing to me the number of medical, you know, devices that now have expiration dates, from non-rebreathers to you know, Gelcos, and you know, I mean, everything's got an expiration date on it. And I got to be honest with you, we have had, you know, we've had agencies that we've gone to, and we start pulling, you know, saline and you know, we found narcotics that were expired too. So, you know, again, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, from a patient safety standpoint, we're looking at everything that's, you know, within our, you know, anything within Article 30, you know, we have the ability to, you know, to review and those kinds of things. But we're also not trying to hinder the system. We know that
I have sodium bicarbonate back order for 2 months. I can't get it.
Yeah, understood.
So, I mean, if I were to tell you that, if you saw one that was expired in my bag, rather than not have any.
Well, I mean, there are certain FDA approvals that are, you know, that for certain medications, and we'd ask you to make sure that you're compliant with that, but, you know what I mean? But, you know, there's tons of stuff with expiration dates now that, you know, 5-6 years ago didn't, and it depends on the manufacturer, it depends on, you know, the medical supplier, and, you know, what you're getting, what those are, but, you know, really paying attention to expiration dates, and certainly medications and IV fluids and, you know, saline, and you know, finding, you know, finding stuff, you know, we've actually found at some, you know, agencies across the region, and I won't, you know, highlight any of them, but, you know, stuff that expired 10 years ago, you know, medication plans, you know, it's like that's pretty scary, you know? So we do believe it's important for us to look at those and ensure compliance, you know what I mean? Go right ahead.
A while back, there was a Narcan shortage. And we were told we could use expired Narcan. So what would be your stance on that?
Well, I mean, if there's a directive, that's an approved directive from the FDA, we've seen those, that there's extended shelf life procedures. There's certain medications that are listed on the FDA website that are approved. and we direct you to that. We certainly direct you to the system medical director who would also be communicating that sub-program agencies typically do. The regional medical director, the REMAC, will also put that stuff out, but a ton of that information really comes from the the FDA website with extended shelf life or shortages, and often the medications are given an alternative medication, or ramping up other medications. We know there's system shortages of certain medications that, we rotate through basically. Who would have ever thought we'd be, on a shortage of saline, but certainly that type of stuff does happen, so. Yeah, but we want you to be compliant with those regional regs. We don't want you just to make a decision, it's good, we can still use it on a patient. We have a negative outcome or something to that effect, there's, and I'm not big on preaching about liability, but there could be potential patient harm, and that's something we wanna absolutely not have occur in the system, so, anyhow. Nice.
Just wrapping up, if I can ask a systems operations clarification question, we can bring it to an end, and anybody wants to talk to that afterwards.
Absolutely.
We'll try to thought. Can you just clarify based on the other questions that we were hearing? If you're inspecting an ambulance, and it doesn't matter whether it's a 1 ambulance company or a 50 ambulance company, if you're
Yes.
inspecting an ambulance and that ambulance is needed to respond emergently to a call, what process do you want us to follow to advise the inspector and move forward with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, our process is the trust but verify, okay? If you guys are holding calls in your system, have your crew, typically, commercial services will send out a supervisor or whatever, but we're gonna listen to that crew. If they say, hey, we're holding calls, we're not gonna impede on system performance. I don't wanna have us be a hindrance to the EMS system. So the goal is to certainly by going electronic, we believe that this process is going to improve the timing or shorten the timing, as we're emphasizing to all of the agencies across the state to do everything in your power to reduce response times, time from the call to the qualified provider at the patient's side. We're emphasizing that kind of stuff. State DOH, EMS inspectors, we have no interest in delaying responses to patients that are in need of service. So we're gonna trust. We don't want you to BS us. We've been in this, we've been in the system for too many years to we're gonna trust but verify, but we certainly are not going to delay a response to an emergency call. And we're not, I'm gonna be very, very clear, we're not out there counting 4x4s, okay? We are looking for the critical items, and we have found ambulances that really, were substandard or didn't meet the regulatory code. We set the basement here, okay? The agency, we want them in, you shouldn't be able to grow corn in the back of the ambulance. It should be clean and sanitary. The suction should work, you know what I mean? You should have the appropriate BVMs. You should have medications that are not expired, you know what I mean? So I can't drive that home enough, and I'm missing, hydrostatic test dates are a huge fine for us. So if you don't know, if your agency directors don't check your hydrostatic test dates, we're gonna cite you every time when we come out and we find hydrostatic test dates that are expired on these cylinders, you know what I mean? So, those are easily preventable things, some education to your crew members, cognizant awareness of when those things expire. Granted, the aluminum tanks are 5 years, from those days. A lot of people that we see out in the field aren't familiar with the hydrostatic test dates. Steel tanks, if you still got steel tanks, it's really time to invest in some other opportunities that are lighter. We're all, in my opinion, and I'm not here preaching for the aluminum people, but I'm just saying, you really need to have that heavy tank and that kind of stuff. In some agencies, that's what they like. Okay, no problem. But, I ask you to try to be as efficient and effective as you can and be compliant. I don't care if you have a steel tank or a aluminum tank, but the expectation is that it has a good hydrostatic test date. Let me just go into one more thing about hydrostatic test dates. The DOT regs are that, that when that tank is filled, that it has to be in hydro. If that tank sits on an ambulance in a compartment underneath a particular area for greater than 5 years, and we come in and see it, that to us is an expired hydrostatic test date. DOT and the DOH policy differ a bit. We have to go that any any D cylinder or M cylinder, E, whatever else you got on your particular vehicles, has to have a good hydro date on it if it's in the ambulance and it's in operation. So we sometimes get pushback from the the various oxygen vendors that, hey, it was, we filled it. Some people have inadequate records of that kind of stuff, but, so we wanna make sure that, and oxygen tanks need to be secured. We find tanks that are snarled underneath the bench seat, that are stuck in there with a pillow and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of hazards in the back of the, the ambulances. We talk about how important crew safety is. We still find stuff that is not, buckled or secured in the appropriate location. If you look across the country, the number of ambulance accidents is still certainly high, and we want to do everything we can to ensure that the providers are safe and that we're doing the right thing. So I really appreciate your time. I don't want to bore you. I hope that this was educational. I'll be here if you have questions or if you want to throw stones or whatever. I don't care. Let's just get to it and solve the issues. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.